Last episode, I talked about preparing to hear your district's plan for return and the things that you kind of have control of there. And I had talked about in our North Dakota Smart Restart for K-12 schools how there were certain stipulations in there that really hadn't been changed. And as I record this, I had just finished listening to our governor and our superintendent, our state superintendent, speak to the reopening of K-12 schools. Their clarity was such that people in the comments were asking, so are we open or are we not? And when I said in the last episode, oh, he's going to at least have to put some numbers on some things. Nope. There's stipulations the school has to have, like basically like an emergency response plan, and what happens in all of these different types of scenarios, but there's no clarity as far as number of students in the classroom or hours that they can be together and those kinds of things. And they said, essentially, our districts are so very incredibly different and the cases vary. Like, we have a county in our state that has had absolutely no cases. So what they do in that teeny tiny school is going to be very different than what we do in Cass County, which I like to call, we are the COVID county seat. Like, we got it here. And we're also a very large district. So what do you do with that? So I understand them saying, hey, districts, school boards, you're in charge of this. I understand why they did it, but I have no freaking clue why they took until July, mid-July, to say that. You could have said that mid-June and given us a little bit more time to plan. So now our districts, thinking maybe they'd have more guidance, aren't having that guidance, and it feels a little bit more like free-for-all. And this is causing a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and it really brought me back to thinking about controlling the controllables. I was the assistant to a head coach, and this head coach, that was one of his favorite things to say: control the controllables. Like, you can't control the ref, you can't control the other team, you can only control what we do. Like, that's the only thing you can control, is what, like, you do in your reactions. So that brought me back to that. And this all leads into my topic for today, personalized learning. So I'm Nicole with Dear Teacher Instructional Coaching, and this is something that was on my goal list for this summer, to research, to learn about it. And I don't expect my students to consider me an expert. Like, that's one of the beautiful parts about teaching, is we do not have to know everything, and it's actually good for our kids to see that we don't, and that we need to do research, and we need to look things up, and that we need to learn, and that it's an ongoing process, and it's not just like one day you're this all-knowing being. Like, that's not a thing. So I was hesitant to do anything about personalized learning because I'm not an expert on it. And after hearing that from our governor and the guidance that we got, it made me think, I gotta talk about this. I gotta talk about personalized learning. I need to start talking about the beginnings of this and how I'm kind of going about it, because I really, really think that this is going to be the way we got to go. I mean, it's going to be challenging, but I think keeping things pretty self-paced for kids, whether you're in person or you're virtual or you're in a hybrid model. I mean, I'm going to find out from my district July 31st. In-service starts August 17th. You're giving me 2 weeks to figure this out. Nah. I'm going to control the controllables. And that is how I deliver content. And so I am going to plan content that can be delivered in a variety of ways. And so I'm moving into, and I should say, like personalized learning is very much like in its truest form is a continuum of learning. There really isn't like a first grade, second grade, third grade, type of a thing. It's this, you don't have to be held into just the bubble of like 7th grade standards. If someone's ready for 8th grade, they move to 8th grade. If they're way back in 5th grade, you start them at that 5th grade and they just progress. So I'm not in a position to do like full personalized learning. So I suppose I should really call this more like self-paced learning. Because I will be providing, like the guidance and the instruction and the activities and those kinds of things, and they'll basically have to walk themselves through these units and demonstrate their mastery and proficiency, and then I'll have extension activities correlated with those standards that we are working on to work those students who are able to move on to the advanced phase and get them to be successful in the advanced category in those standards. So this is a little bit, I know I'm calling it personalized, but it's really more self-paced learning for these students. So one of the big things I discovered, if you're starting out with this, if you're like, okay, I'm in with something self-paced. I have been doing quite a bit of research on personalized learning, but it is still new, I would say, in the realm of education. Like there's not, if you find research on differentiated instruction, you can find a load of it. Personalized learning is still something that is being researched and documented and those kinds of things. But I found a site called Modern Teacher, and you can watch their videos on demand for like completely free. And that was a super great starting point for me. And if you want, you can jump to the end of the video and I will show you what Modern Teacher looks like. But that was a really great website that I use, but you can also, read like Edutopia or EdWeek articles about personalized learning, or even switch your search so it's self-paced learning and see maybe what you get from that. When you're doing this then, you need to have your pacing guide or your scope and sequence or your standards for quarter one, whatever you use to plan, whatever's got your standards for quarter one, you gotta have that. And my goal is to, because I already did my quarter one reflection knowing I was going to be doing something with personalized learning, so I know a little bit more like what I want to do with it, and what standards I'm going to focus on. So you got to get your standards figured out, and your learning needs to be standards based, and then you design within those standards. Try not to like branch out into left field, even though there can be like some super cool ideas. So like my main text for quarter one is the novel A Long Walk to Water. So that novel, there are so many freaking cool things that I could do as far as like service learning and those kinds of things, but I might have to make that stuff a level 4 just because it doesn't necessarily fit or assess the standards that I need to be assessing. So you have to kind of play around and like bear that in mind, that even though there's like cool stuff, is it actually connecting with your standards? So you got to start with the standards and make those like your focus, and then you kind of build around those with those as your basis for everything that you're creating. So I mentioned like the level 4 activities or extension activities. So maybe some of those service learning things could be in the level 4. In the same breath, you don't want that to be the only thing that's level 4, because I would like to be able to create something where my students are doing a service learning project and it's all of them, you know, so it's not just like a bonus type of a thing that everybody gets involved. But that's just one idea. So another teacher that is in our district who is going like full personalized learning, she is looking at doing PBL projects for level 4 for those extension activities. She's a science teacher, and she said a lot of her level 4 standards are simply the standard applied to the real world. Well, hello. What is PBL? It is applying our standards to the real world. So she's able to she's created PBLs. She has done, that was her action research project for her master's degree. So she's very familiar with that. So think about your comfort level and what you could do for those extension activities. Also, if you have something like, we have a second step program. They have a ton of resources. You could also look to Common Lit, Newsela, readworks.org for other extension activities that you can. The Library of Congress actually is another place that you can find some really cool units, or you can just look up PBLs on whatever topic, Civil War PBLs, and see what standards they're hitting, and if you need to, you know, edit or adjust or change things however would suit the needs for you, your students, and your standards. And then this was something that is interesting about personalized learning is this advice was shared to me by this science teacher, and she said at the start of the year it's going to go so slow that you're going to like almost panic. Like what would typically take you a week to go through with content is going to take you a month, because it takes a while for students to kind of figure out and get their groove and those kinds of things. And I feel like, and instead of having like the sage on the stage, you do still have to have direct instruction. Like that is a proven teaching strategy. You have to have direct instruction to the whole class, but consider those like mini lessons. You know, like kids' attention span isn't real long, so you have to make sure that you're, you know, transitioning pretty quickly between things. So you're giving them like one focus item every few days to really zoom in on, or that you're seeing, you know, like one of the things I do when I like have student papers and I'm looking through their drafts or I'm walking around the classroom, I'll be like, okay, clearly we need to talk about appropriate use of quotations. Okay, how they're citing this. And so, you know, I let them work, do their thing, and then the next day we do like a little 15-minute editing section on this is what you're doing, this is what it looks like, go through, let's fix. And then they, you know, then they feel more confident and comfortable. I don't like stopping them in the middle of the process because a lot of them are just like mentally puking things out and on a roll. So it's that, okay, what's going on right now? That's that formative assessment. It's being engaged with what your kiddos are doing and like seeing like, ooh, we got to really talk about that. And being able to then develop that plan for that next day of, I got to make sure I talk about this and this, and we're really going to zoom in on those just very couple of like rules with using quotations in research papers, and we're going to master those too. So consider that, thinking about how you can do more mini lessons, especially if you're in like a hybrid form where you will be only seeing your students in person for a short while. You could use this and think of this almost as like a flipped setting where you are recording your lecture or you are recording examples. And then the students have to watch those and go through those, and you do like the baseline vocabulary stuff, and you have them go through like a practice section of using the vocab, then they do the quiz, then they move on to the actual application part of it. And then when you see them in person, you can guide them a little bit more in their application. Or if there's a group of students who cannot get beyond the vocabulary, have them make a set of flashcards, have them do a mind map, or use those different strategies where they can work together and help each other study. And then hopefully by like the next class period, they'll be able to, or the next day when you see them, you should be able, hopefully they'll be able to pass that vocab part, and you can get them going in the application part of whatever you're working on. So that's kind of the beginning of where I'm at with personalized / self-paced learning. Not really sure what I'm going to keep calling this. But I'm going to have a plan ready. I'm going to have something set to go that it doesn't matter if I am in person or online. It's not going to matter, because I cannot control the fact that we are a gigantic district. I cannot control the fact that we have the most cases in this county than any other county in North Dakota. And I can't control the fact that they need time, to get this together. And even though our principals at our school were working on these specific plans, there's still an approval process for the plans. And they might have been expecting a little bit more from the governor and the state superintendent than they got. And they're like, well, crap, now what? So they're taking the time to edit, they're taking the time to get stuff out there, and they are going to be submitting those plans to the school board. They need to be done by July 31st so they can be accepted by the school board in August. But before that, there will be tons of conversations, that they'll have to have. And I know they have been having those conversations already. So I'm hoping it's before July 31st, just for the sake of, I want to know. Like the unknown is almost worse than anything else that's going on. Like, I just want to know. But I also like to feel prepared. And so if I can get myself a map of how I am going to do and not only survive but thrive during this first quarter, and make it as awesome for my students as I possibly can, despite whatever model we're doing, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to be in control of that. And I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I have the time to be thinking, to be brainstorming, to get in touch with other teachers and be like, let's work this out together. So consider it, think about it. Personalized, self-paced learning. How could you utilize? Think about what are your standards in quarter one. How can you build around those standards? Is there any tech stuff that you can use? You can look up the 3 that I had previously talked about: Newsela, Common Lit, and readworks.org. You can also enlist the help of your tech coaches and instructional coaches if you are lucky enough to have them. And there's tons of stuff out there. So you gotta look. And you can do this. Like, trust me, you can do this. Dear teacher, I believe in you. All right, so I said I would show Modern Teacher. This is modernteacher.com. This is something I do believe that you can sign up for. However, if you go to their on-demand, they have this new series, Building a Personalized Learning Ecosystem. And if you go to explore episodes, you will see their episodes that they have on this. So, the personalized learning ecosystem, understanding competencies, instructional design, and then digital ecosystems. So you can look at all of those and you can see kind of their model for this. And it's interesting because they do provide like you can get a membership and all of those kinds of things. But if you are just using this kind of as research, you can go ahead and just watch these videos. So what you could do is you would click on an episode and then you enter in your information and it will go ahead and open it up for you, and you click the start button. Now, this is on demand, so it means you're not watching it live, and because of that, it doesn't let you pause it. At least it's not letting me on my computer, and it's usually about an hour. So because you can't pause and like take a break and come back to it, you want to make sure that you reserve about an hour, if not a little bit more of time. Most of them do go over 1 hour, but they not only present like the information about creating this personalized learning ecosystem and design, but also they have people come on from around the nation talking about how they have used like the Modern Teacher platform and those kinds of things. However, even though like I don't have a membership, I haven't signed up for anything, none of that, I'm just watching these on-demand episodes, it's giving me a really good like idea about how to structure personalized learning and how like the steps kind of are as far as considering how to create the content yourself. So even though it's a lot of work to do that on your own, this does provide a really good platform for showing you what you can do. So just wanted to show you that. Told you it'd be at the end of the video. So here it is.